Having fun is underrated
Yeah.
in life and guitar.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Lesson, and I have a guest today who is going to talk about vintage guitar tones. We're going to cork sniff. We're going to talk about tubes. We're going to talk about all the vintage gear you've ever dreamed of. Actually, we're not going to do any of that because we're going to break all the rules, and you're going to get to know from Instagram, but now live in my studio, ELIJAH Sokolow. All right, you got to check him out. That's what this whole lesson series is about. Me finding people on Instagram that you need to see live in person in my studio. So, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, I saw some of your videos and I thought, this guy's doing stuff I've never seen anyone do. And you're doing it with gear that nobody would probably choose on purpose.
Sure.
And then you're kludging it all together to make unbelievable sounds.
Thank you.
And yet you're able to use it live as well. It sounds like stuff that could only be done in the studio, but you're making the guitar have a whole new way of being used in a live situation as well. So I want to compliment you on that because it's super unique, the sounds you're doing, the playing style, and the fact that it's reproducible in the studio and live. Give us a couple of examples of some of your unique sounds. Now, this guitar has a submarine pickup on it, which for people that don't know, it's something that you can attach to your guitar. You don't necessarily have to bolt it on.
Yes.
You're using magnets.
These are some magnets here. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, and so explain how you're using it and what it's doing for your sound.
Totally. So with the submarine pickup, there are assignable outputs and there are multiple outputs per string, right?
Yeah.
And so this specific pickup has 4 outputs and I'm using 2 of them and I'm splitting my low strings and my high strings to different outputs. And then I have different guitar tones over here in my computer for each set of strings.
So you're actually playing through your laptop and you're also playing through this amplifier here. So you have kind of a wet, dry, wet rig.
Yes.
But you're using the functionality of the DAW on your laptop and plugins in your laptop, as well as this submarine pickup to split your signal. So it's basically a low guitar and a high guitar. So just let's hear what that sounds like.
Totally. So my low strings right now have this kind of fuzzed out sound. In the laptop, I'm using New Distort as well as Roar, which is a stock Ableton plugin. And it just sounds like this. And then my high strings have this chorus, a lot of compression, and no sort of amp simulation or anything to almost get like an acoustic kind of sound, like a contact mic kind of sound. Which some people might not find very desirable, but for me, the functionality comes into play because I have a lot of songs where I record the guitar strings while also recording a parallel signal of like a fuzz sound.
So you're talking about putting a mic on the strings.
Putting a literal dynamic microphone right in front of the strings. Yeah, exactly. And so.
But people did that in the 60s and 70s.
Yes, and that's actually something that I took inspiration from. I made a record with Chris Walla from Death Cab for Cutie, and I saw him do that when we were making the record, and I thought it was a great sound, and I know people have been doing that for a long time. And so when it comes to reproducing this kind of thing live, it just timed out perfectly where I found the submarine pickup, and while it is not doing all 6 strings with both tones, it's the best live approximation of the sound to have both things at once, and then to just throw in any sort of missing depth from the sound. I also like using the amp at the same time to just have more going on in the mid-range. So with the submarine pickup, you can hear the fuzz and that kind of acoustic chorused out sound at once.
Yes.
And then you add in the amp.
It sounds like more than one guitar is happening as well, which is cool. And then, of course, you have panning capabilities.
Yes.
So it's a very unique way to record your guitar and manipulate the guitar at the same time. So I'm fascinated by it because you're using direct distortion, which in many cases a standard guitar player would say, oh, it sounds terrible, it needs to go through a speaker.
Sure.
But some of the best guitar tones that we love from older records, whether it's the Beatles, Revolution,
1000%,
or Black Dog, which was also direct, which was he played through 3 compressors and some of the board to push the distortion. But the idea here that you could split strings and then add effects to certain strings and not on others is a very modern thing to try to implement into music and into your playing. So I'd like to hear more of some of these sounds that you have and just give me some ideas of what made you choose some of the things that you use. Like I see this Line 6 HX Stomp XL.
Yes.
Which, how old is that unit?
Okay, so this unit is a couple years old. I got it in 2022. And the thing with this is I originally got it with no understanding of all of the weird sounds it could make. I got it just because I wanted to approximate regular sounds on the go, you know, plug into a PA system at a show the way that a lot of people use it, which is cool.
Yeah, as a modeler.
Yeah, completely. And then when I started kind of diving into it, I found that I was more connected to these really niche like synth effects that are in here. And I'm not even really using a lot of these amp models anymore. I like to use it just as a DI fuzz with synth kind of sound. So
you're not even using the speaker cabs in
correct,
it.
yeah.
It's
just
all
completely,
DI.
and when I do use some sort of amp simulator, I use in there's a model for a tape machine called the Retro Reel, because when I record, I plug into a TAC preamp and just crank it. And so that's almost like approximating that even live, which is a cool vibe. Because I have entertained bringing the TAC on stage, but I'm afraid of it. So here's one of my favorite sounds with the HX Stomp XL.
See, I think that if you were playing that on a Van Halen sound would also sound cool, but this, the way it is the new version of that. It's you have created your own voice with these probably for many people throwaway tools because they're going to look at it as, oh, that's not the pro version. That's the toy version.
Right.
But I love the approach of taking other people's garbage and saying, I'm going to make this so desirable that now you want this pedal board.
Totally. I mean, I will say Line 6 has always made crazy oddball stuff, and I respect the hell out of it. I think it's awesome, and I have encountered many a gear snob that really, is either surprised that I'm using it or doesn't like it or anything like that, and everyone has their taste. Like, that's cool. But I think for me, it was so important to divorce myself from the biases that I had developed by just being a guitar player. I mean, that's really the thing, is like, one of my favorite things that some of these effects can do is even like whether it's like a ring modulator or like a constant harmony. I like things that take away my immediate understanding of the fretboard, right? Yeah. And then I'm really going off of my instincts, and it feels a little bit like when I began playing guitar and there was excitement and discovery. Yeah. And I think why not embrace what it is and push it in a totally different place, you know?
From what you're saying, it sounds to me like part of the excitement of this is you like to react to the sounds because they're unusual, and that makes you play differently.
Completely, yeah. And I never want to use the effects as a crutch, but I do like to use them to change my approach in the same way that somebody might try an alternate tuning, right? Or something where, you know, it puts them a little bit out of their depth, and I still have the shapes that I reach for compositionally or just if I'm improvising. But at the same time, if I don't think of this sound as a guitar and I don't think about my preconceived notions of a guitar riff, and I just think this is a sound with an attack and a decay, and sometimes it's polyphonic if I have some sort of, like here I have major thirds on every note. Yeah. It just puts me in a different headspace creatively. And that's my primary inspiration for the last couple of years has been chasing that.
Well, give me a sense of some of your other favorite sounds with this guitar.
Sure. So on the Helix, there's a couple of these synth sounds that I reach for a lot. So one of them is the synth lead, which is pretty self-explanatory. And I like to just put some dirt either ahead or behind it. In this case, I'll do ahead. Now, a lot of times people in my comment section will say, well, why don't you just get a synth? Why do this, right? Why play guitar and make it sound like this? And one of the things that I always feel when I see stuff like that is, even if the sound is coming from a digital effect and it sounds a lot like a mono synth or something like that, ultimately, the way I'm physically getting what I'm playing is so rooted in guitar and in my connection to playing guitar, you know, with the experience of starting out on all of those older records, that I feel like inherently I'm going to approach it differently, you know, and so that's kind of the thing.
It would not have the same impact if you were standing there like John Tesh with a keytar.
Totally,
yeah. It's a different thing.
Completely, and I love, you know, synthesizers and people that can play them super well, but ultimately I came up on guitar and I came up on bending the strings and doing things that, while I know you can get similar effects with like a mod wheel or something, to me it's not the same, and I wouldn't be able to accomplish the same result, right?
Plus you have the actual physical experience of playing, banging the strings, bending the strings.
Yeah, totally, right. Yeah, just anything that is inherent to guitar playing.
And your vibrato is something that can be added, which you can't do with a keyboard.
Completely. And so that's one sound that I love. Another one is this low octave synth fuzz kind of thing.
That's super cool. I noticed you don't have any MIDI. At some point, are you going to consider having the ability to go straight to your favorite presets via MIDI, or are you just still going to keep it old school like
I'm not a big MIDI guy. I think I could see using MIDI in a live setting if I had tracks for every song, but I don't like using tracks either. So I like keeping it old school. It's like a pedal board. If I need to change presets fast, well, to be honest, I like to just scroll, but at the same time, you know, if I can't scroll, I can switch modes and then click somewhere else and use that as a means. But no, I'm not really a big MIDI guy. And that's the thing, because a lot of people see the sounds and they ask, are you using MIDI? Are you using the MIDI pickup that people put under the bridge or next to the bridge? And yeah, it's not for me, really.
Well, I could see how it could simplify some things and give you extended flexibility, but the way you're using it and the sounds that you're coming up with, obviously it's not blocking any creativity, so you don't need to make any changes at this point.
Sure.
But maybe play even a few more little riffs, and maybe at some point you'll teach me something, because this is the lesson. the lesson, people. We're going to learn things. But I also want to hear the 12 string. So whatever you want to do next.
Yeah, let's check out the 12 string.
Okay. Now you have a 12 string here, and this one, do you use standard tuning on it, or do you sometimes tune it weird? Because I think I've seen videos where you've tuned it in ways that are not normal for a 12 string.
Yes, so I will use both, right? I'll use standard tuning for some of my songs, but one of my favorite things about the 12 string is there's twice the opportunity to do something weird, right? With an alternate tuning, one of my favorite things to do is tune the pairs of strings to like some sort of harmony. And so I can even show you that. Right now, these are both tuned to E, my low E string. And so I'm gonna tune B string down, or sorry, the E string. I'm gonna tune it to B, right? Now I just have this harmony on my low E string.
That sounds cool.
Right, and then to make matters weirder, maybe we throw in a third somewhere. So like on the D string, we have D, and then here, I will tune this D down, and let's go to an F sharp. And one of my favorite things to do with this is throw in some sort of reverb, usually a gated reverb. Gated reverb on my guitar, for me, what I love about it is spatially, it puts the guitar in like just an impossible space. Something that is just, you know, it's so kind of resonant, but then it just cuts right off. And so kind of metallic sounding.
Yeah.
And so I'll do these kinds of parts where I'm just playing with these different harmonies and some gated reverb, and that's one of my favorite sounds with the 12 string.
Adding some harmonics as you're going there sometimes, and it gives you another layer of something odd.
Yes, yeah. So harmonics are another one of my favorite tools to just put the guitar in a different place. And that's such a classic thing. I mean, talk about like inspiration from the greats, you know, people like Van Halen.
Yeah.
I mean, so much of those techniques, learning those types of songs when I was just beginning to play guitar, still inspire me all the time.
So what, with this sound, can you layer from here to give it even more texture?
Right, so from here, what I think is really cool is I'm actually gonna change sets here to a bank of synth sounds. And one of my favorite sounds is, yeah, here we go. So one of my favorite sounds is this string synth sound where there is a mix between this kind of string synth and your regular guitar. So here's the mix all the way.
Is it polyphonic or is it monophonic?
This is monophonic.
Okay.
And so here it is just with the synth sound, just so you can hear that. Right? And then I like to bring the mix to more of a halfway point, maybe even favoring the natural guitar sound a little bit more, 60-40. And then maybe we'll throw a little bit of sauce on it. Being that it is generally a monophonic effect, what I love about the blend is you still get the harmony from the natural guitar sound.
Yeah.
But that harmony can kind of confuse the synth pitch, basically,
Yeah.
and then it just kind of wigs out.
It warbles, but it also has the envelope that is doing the rise into it. So you have the texture of two guitars at once because one has more immediate attack and then the other one is following it.
Totally, totally. And you know, I used to actually play in a band that was just me and a drummer. And I think that that experience kind of led me to a lot of this because I was constantly trying to fill space being like the only harmonic instrument. And I think that with this kind of synth effect, that's my favorite use of it, right? So if I'm doing this, I don't want a lot of other stuff going on in my arrangement just for the sake of really being able to hear. Like I think one of my favorite things to do on the guitar is get one sound that feels like three different things.
Yeah.
And so like imparting this to that inspiration, growing up, one of my favorite composers, producers, just in general, ever was Brian Wilson. And that's something where I would look at me doing this and say, I'm doing this to honor that inspiration that I would read or hear about, you know, him making records and having three different people play the same part to just make a mass of sound. And then I might say, well, you know, I'm not gonna also get those same instruments going on in my song, but maybe there's something, I mean, there's a lot of great 12-string stuff on those records too, right? Like Wouldn't It Be Nice or stuff like that.
Sure.
And so I like the idea of kind of taking that, but then putting it with this totally different thing. Like the synth sound is almost like, you know, something that it makes me think of like Justice or like, I don't know, like more stuff like that.
The thing is, the takeaway here too is that you're making space for it in the way that you arrange the music. It's very different to say, okay, I'm going to do layer upon layer upon layer.
Right.
Something's going to get lost. You're doing it where you have one instrument that has many layers, but you're playing one time and it's creating that. So you're reacting to the layers in real time.
Yeah.
And that's part of the excitement that I think comes across when we hear the sound is that you're reacting to what it's doing and it's sounding different than other things. So it's engaging right from the very start, but it's also not too much information all at once so that the listener can follow what's happening.
Totally, yeah. And I'll say too, I really like simple riffs. I like simple parts. I've always connected to them. And that's one of my favorite things about playing is if there, you know, is a part or a riff that is, you know, four notes or three notes or something like Satisfaction, like, you know, it's like really simple, but just very effective. And I think that it's those types of parts that allow for more sound design oriented playing to shine because you can really like hear the sound. It's not like
and to your point, when I found you on Instagram, if you scroll through your Instagram, it comes out that way. You can go from one clip to another and you're hearing short but very cool expressive riffs. And that's the thing that I also liked was that you had the maturity of a composer who knows just what to use and what not to use.
Thank you.
For the way that you're approaching all of this. So I think anybody's going to be able to see and feel that from what you're doing. But speaking of that, now try to show me a riff and let me see if I can kind of understand your headspace, how you write something, and then I'll see if I can learn it.
Awesome. So let's go to the 12th fret on the E string, and let's go for like a major bar chord shape.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna replace my first finger with my thumb, and I'm gonna use my first finger on the 11th fret of the G string for this sus chord.
Okay.
And then we're gonna go up to the major third on G. So then we're gonna do one strum, that first shape, and then three strums of the new shape. So we got, sweet. And then I'm gonna go to the 12th fret of the B and E string and do like almost like a little quick stab. So we got.
Okay.
Nice. And then we're gonna move from this E shape down down to a D, just a D major bar chord. I'm changing now the way that I'm grouping the strums. So first I'm going 1 strum, and then 3, and then this time I'm going 2 and 2.
And then do you go back up to this?
Yes, exactly. So I'm gonna go.
Okay.
Awesome. And then we're gonna do another grouping of 1 strum and then 3 strums on the next chord, and we're gonna go from this D chord to a C sharp minor chord, and then up to our 12th fret. Awesome. And then it ends with another group of 2 and 2 strums going from this C sharp minor chord to this C diminished chord, although I prefer honestly to just play the root note in the flat fifth, so we'll just go.
So, but it goes from the minor to the flat 5 type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're gonna go to the 12th fret again. So we got in total. Loops
That's
from there.
cool. And so do you have other parts that build later on when you play it? Like, does it move up an octave or?
Yeah, so when I'm playing this, I don't usually go up the octave, but it is a cool option. You could go from.
Yeah, so that.
Down, exactly. Exactly right. And then one thing I like to do is add some gated reverb just on those stabs. So
Yeah.
it kind of in favor of this idea of 2 parts at once. This is an example where I'm clicking that on and off throughout the riff like this. So I'm going. That's actually something that I saw Johnny Greenwood do years ago. And so that,
Turning things on and off just for certain.
Yeah, just as part of the rhythm of the riff. Exactly.
That's cool. So maybe we'll try to play it together. Maybe I'll play the high one, or we could try starting on the original one and then move to the high one.
Let's do that.
All right.
Cool. So we'll go.
See if I can actually do it.
Sweet. 3, 4.
Something like that, as you were saying, like a simple idea that turns into a loop, but has some kind of harmonic movement that is surprising. That little bit where it goes like this, that's my favorite part of the riff. And it's unexpected and cool, but the textures of the whole thing are what make it sound not like a guitar, but still a guitar. And that's the thing that is what we're talking about from the beginning, is how do you take guitar, make it new by still playing it like a guitar, but making it sound like something else. And the people that don't get it, who are like, well, why wouldn't you just play the instrument you're trying to sound like? They don't understand how fun it is to play the guitar.
Totally. I think that is, having fun is underrated in life and guitar. I think that it's like one of those things where I feel a little bit like I don't ever want to be pretentious about it. This is a specific style of sound design and of playing, and I like to do it, but I don't think that it's better or worse than anything else. It's just my taste, right? And it's what I want to impart as a player when I'm making music, right? I mean, if I'm in a situation where it doesn't make sense to do this, I'm not gonna do it. But I have found myself really since my Instagram chapter of music entering situations mainly where this is what serves the musical situation, because these types of sounds work not only in the context of my own compositions, but I've managed to work with a lot of other artists and producers who might be making music stylistically completely different than me, but these sounds fit in their world because we're both aligning in the sound design area and we're not thinking guitar. Like I once heard someone say they thought guitar solos were cheesy, and I totally don't agree with that. I think that
Me neither.
I think that it really depends on what you're playing, right? It might be cheesy to, grab a lick that we've heard a billion times and give a big, and maybe it's not too, right? It depends, but it could be cheesy to do some of these or whatever, like, things. I don't think it's cheesy, but someone might take it that way in the right setting for it to feel that way.
Often, don't you think the people that think it's cheesy are the ones that can't do it? I do.
I don't know. I think that there's a lot of inner conflict with guitar players when it comes to these types of things. I think that it's a community of people who take so much inspiration, and at the same time, I can understand being conflicted about playing something, but it's so fun, and that's the thing. And so I feel a little bit like, for me, my way to kind of subvert my own insecurity of if I'm playing a solo and I'm like, is this cheesy? Is like with this kind of approach, just trying to get outside of thinking about guitar licks and solos and thinking more melodically and thinking I'm making a melody.
Layers and textures along that.
And phrasing. I mean, that's the thing is like, you can have a fast phrase for sure. I'm not against playing fast, but at the same time, I can understand if it's not appropriate to go full Freebird mode in a song. It really just depends. But these tools, to me, inspire me to take that melodic approach, because sometimes to even get the full envelope of like a specific sound that I'm using, I need to let it ring out.
Yeah, you need the time.
Almost
it needs
like
to be more simple, like you were saying.
Yeah, or it's almost like a horn sound or something, like a trumpet, where there is an envelope to the sound, and I want to let that happen. And maybe I'm thinking, that might lead me to play something more, legato or slow or Fripp-like or something, where it's just a totally, not that he only plays like that, but it's, one of his great sounds, that sustain that's just moving around. So I think they don't have to be cheesy. I think they're not cheesy if you're not cheesy.
Yeah, everything is always about taste and how it's applied and all this stuff. So I feel like you can get away with a lot of stuff with the guitar, but while we're on this subject of the lesson and learning stuff, I'm hearing things that you're doing, and I'm thinking there's one thing that I would show you that I'd like to hear what you would do with it, because it could be something that would be cool for the guitar that has the submarine pickup, but it'll still work for this. The idea is, because you can do things where you have the low strings doing one thing and the high strings doing something else, you could apply this idea that I'm about to show you and maybe turn it into some things. So here's the best way to think about this. We're going to take a few shapes that are going to be identical on a couple of string pairs, and then the shape is going to change for the next string pairs.
Cool.
And I'll show you as 3 chord shapes, but then you can articulate it as an actual melodic line or arpeggio afterwards. All
awesome.
Right? So everybody, you can learn this at home too. It's not very hard, but it's going to sound cool later. All right. So we're going to go with the G on the 3rd fret with the low E string, and then the A on the 7th fret of the D string. So we're going to play it as a chord like this. Right? So what's going to happen is this is going to climb up like this, and this is going to go. So it'll sound like this.
Right, okay.
Okay, now do the exact same thing starting on C on the A string here. Right, so do those two. All right, now here's where it changes, and it'll be the same on the next set of strings, but it's going to be an octave. And then we're going to go into fifths. do it again here.
Very cool.
Yeah, so if you do that, now try to alternate. So you can have something that can move faster.
Right.
So you can do that or the whole line. So it almost sounds like, you know, you could put delays on one set of strings and do some weird stuff.
Totally. Okay. Let's try it with the submarine. Why not?
Yeah. Switch it up. Elijah's got the submarine guitar ready to go. We're going to try this lick. Let's hear it. Do you have delays on it?
Yeah, so I have delays on my high strings here. So my low strings, but my high strings have this kind of thing.
Cool. Play the lick and let's see what it sounds like.
Here we go.
That's cool. I think you could probably find ways to have even more repeats.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get this. Let's start with this delay time. Let's see if this does anything. I'm almost wondering if we have a faster or slower time.
Try it. Yeah, that's cool because you can definitely have different textures in one lick. And if you did it with the chords, you know.
Sick.
Yeah. So let's see. You do that. I'll try to play it in a harmony. So if you do the, you know, if we're doing that, we'll try it like that. I'll see if I can not mess it up in a harmony.
Awesome. Here we go. 3, 4. Pretty rad.
Yeah. So those kind of things can be useful when you're writing riffs or when you're trying to see the fretboard differently, splitting up things that have contrary motion. You know, if we look at that again, which was...
Right.
That's what's happening on each string if you look at it all at once. So it has those combinations all at once. I like trying to find things that will give me a different way to look at the neck, which is almost a similar thing to what you're talking about, but adapting the effects to it at the same time.
Right. Totally. I think that one really cool way to do that without using a lot of sound design while we're here is sometimes this tuning is a little weird, but I love to tune my low E string all the way down to an A, like an octave below like a drop A situation. And then with distortion, let that rub with higher strings that I'm playing at the same time, almost like a manual ring mod or something. Like I can demonstrate
By the way, Edward Van Halen used to tune his low E string down to an A for certain songs.
Oh, cool. Yeah. It's one of my favorite things to do. And so, right, I'm just finding different notes here that have this kind of rub, but it almost sounds like a ring modulator or something.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a simple riff, and I'm going to kill this delay so that it's a little cleaner. right? Stuff like that,
Yeah.
where it just kind of changes the vibe a little bit, and it's just fun to play. It's fun to do some finger picking, but have it be like almost like a distorted kind of riff, not like a.
There's a guy. Do you know Ariel Posen? You know his
Yes.
playing.
Yeah.
He does a lot of detune stuff, but he plays a lot with slide, and
Yeah.
he's got some similar things where he'll use a fuzz with an octave in it, and
Right.
it gets a similar type of sound. But what's cool is the rhythmic element of using the low string to give yourself strong downbeats and then use the other strings to create the weird harmonies.
Yes.
Is a cool thing, but maybe you should try it with a slide sometime too.
Yeah,
You
that would
never
be
know.
awesome. 100%.
So what other sounds do you want to show us before we wrap things up?
You know, let's get into some more of these pedals.
I saw that you have a preset called Mayonnaise.
I do. Yeah, we could check that out too. Why not? I love the Smashing Pumpkins. They're one of my favorite bands of all time, and they have this tremendous song Mayonnaise, and I made this sound initially to approximate that solo tone in that song. And so I'm stacking these drives. One is supposed to be like a fuzz factory, and then there's also a flanger going on. Especially on the neck pickup. So, you know, not exactly like the song, but inspired by the song.
Yeah.
And then I, just for fun, added this synth lead sound that has a mix also going, and it's, you know, at 63% synth. And so with this, now it goes from being that kind of Pumpkins tone to a more synthy. Synthy kind of lead sound in parallel, almost like there is a synth player that's just doubling exactly what I'm doing. So
cool.
that's the Mayonnaise sound. And then also while we're here,
Some people don't like mayonnaise.
it's true. Let's go to the synth.
Blowfish for Hootie and the Blowfish.
Yeah, right. So in the synth bank, there's this smart harmony sound that is moving thirds in the key of A, right?
Okay, so it's diatonic.
Yes, exactly. And so one of my favorite sounds is to do almost like something you'd hear in like a video game or something. Where I'm moving through the key. Yeah, and
Try the lick that I just showed you because it kind of will
yeah,
do the
let's
same
get
thing.
that kind of thing.
Video game madness right there.
Exactly.
That's
Super
cool.
fun. Yeah, those old game soundtracks I think are also super inspiring. I mean, the sound design, that's something too where it's almost like, you know, a lot of times people think of electronic sounds as modern sounds, but people have been making electronic music for so long.
Yeah.
And so there is a lot of inspiration I find too in that kind of stuff, in people that were doing that sort of thing in, you know, in the even late 70s or, you know, things like that.
Well, you probably could find inspiration in a lot of other crazy pedals. Like this pedal, which I just got the other day, and we decided to use it for this because it makes that crazy feedback. But this company, Cosmodio Industries, has a few things that I bet you would really love because they've got like a wave folding distortion
wow.
thing
Cool.
that does all kinds of wild stuff, and it has modulated you know, elements to it with delays and stuff like that. But this one, when we were running it earlier, it just needs to basically have the feedback all the way up, and it makes all kind of crazy noise. But I can imagine this kind of sound mixed with all of that. The companies that are kind of aligned with the sound design aspect of what you're doing, there's a lot of them out there.
Yes.
And I just stumbled across these guys, this Splinter twin pedal.
Yes, Splinter Twin.
From Cosmodio Instruments. It's very cool. I definitely love the weirdness. Let's hear it again where it just goes crazy. Let's go ahead and turn it on. I would definitely try to write a song with just all that noise in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the Edge of Breakup tone, you know, just the kind of classic sound.
Yeah, imagine if somebody had this, you know, I would imagine Jimmy Page would have got some use with his theremin with this thing.
Exactly, 100%.
Back in the day.
Sure.
It's definitely cool. I think all the stuff that you're doing is super cool, and I would love to hear more of your music in its fullest form, like completed songs. I'm only seeing the stuff that's clips, but I gotta see more. And maybe you would be willing to do a song here in the studio.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
All right, let's do that.
Sounds great.
Parasite, open mind, I don't know where I'm gonna go. Override, out of spite, the days feel so slow. Bitter night, never right, stubborn and tongue-tied. I'm paranoid, I can't avoid eating alive. I know I won't wait for things to change. I won't tell you what to say. Parasite, bitter night, tell me it's not what it's looking like. Never right, pick a fight, eat me alive. I know I won't wait for things to change. I don't tell you what to say.
Well, what can I say? Today we learned about things we never thought we would see or hear. And I appreciate that you came here to teach me some stuff and that you are doing the things that you're doing and pushing the guitar in directions that I have not seen before. And I am a guitar enthusiast, people. In fact, I thought when he came in here today that I should have a sound that was so unusual to match the sounds he was making. So what did I choose? A $20 Smarvo, because I think my life should be sponsored by Smarvo. Anyway, I'm just saying, Smarvo, have you heard of Smarvo before?
Not until today.
It's a pretty sweet little amp.
Yeah,
Maybe you need a little pair of these.
It's true. Parallel sounds of Smarvo.
Parallel Smarvo.
It's true.
Yeah. I definitely, you should, I'll let you borrow this. And let's see what sounds you come up with.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Well, Elijah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Anything else you think people need to know about with your music? Are you putting out a record soon?
Yes. So I have one self-titled record out now that you can find on any streaming platform. It's just Soklo, S-O-K-L-O. And I'm working on my next record, and the first single will be out this spring.
Sweet. Is it going to use a Smarvo?
You know, that remains to be seen.
Well, it should. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for watching. Until next time, like and subscribe.